So after I made this video, I've been thinking about this topic. Did Wuthering Waves become too good to criticize? And that basically comes from some of the points that I brought up in that video and also some of the comments that I got. Because a lot of people were saying that, in other words, I was kind of nitpicking. And honestly, I tend to agree. Some of the points that I brought up were indeed nitpicks. Also, there were a few things that I completely forgot to mention in that video. For example, story log progression. If you get a new character, you still need to progress to the story to unlock some of the materials needed to level them up. Or at least get far enough to be able to buy those materials from the shop. And even after you unlock the shop, you can't always buy everything immediately. Most times you need to wait multiple weeks before you can get enough materials to fully max out a character. So that is definitely a valid criticism. Some events are also story locked, and yeah, those were some of the things that I forgot to mention before. But even the nitpicking comments, when you ran out of all of these critiques, they become kinda valid because you want your game to strive towards perfection. So if some of those things are fixable, then why not call it out? Like, unless they are literally unfixable, I don't see a reason to not call it out. But going back to the main point, did Wuthering Waves become too good to criticize? Or maybe that's not the right way to put it, because I don't think the game literally became too good to criticize, but I do think Wuthering Waves reached a certain point where criticizing it became a lot harder, because when you try to criticize Wuthering Waves today, you really need to dig deep. There isn't really that one big issue anymore that everybody can point at and agree is bad, or at the very least there are a lot less of them. But back then, when the game launched, that wasn't the case. We had the lack of tuners, echo upgrading, all the excessive clicking when trying to upgrade echoes. We had things that pretty much everybody agreed were issues. If you complain about those things, most people would agree with you. But today, it's different, because most of the things that you can criticize are things that almost every gacha game already does. And that's where the things get interesting, because at that point, is it really a Wuthering Waves problem, or is it a gacha industry problem? That's the question, because even the issues that Wuthering Waves shares with other gachas are usually handled better than in a lot of those games. If you look at the mainstream gacha market right now, Wuthering Waves is competitive in basically every category. Sure, you can point out specific things, maybe Honkai Star Rail gives out more characters, maybe ZZZ has better relic or artifact management system, but from what I've seen, the cycling gear is definitely more convenient there. And if you're into that, like me, some people would say that ZZZ has more fan service. So sure, there are individual things that other games do better, but they are usually very specific things. Because when you look at the overall package, Wuthering Waves is competing at the highest level, which is why most criticisms today end up becoming either personal preference or nitpicking. Not because the game is perfect, but because most of the major issues have already been fixed. And recently, the Cyberpunk collaboration only reinforced that feeling. So I recently finished the story, and even before finishing it, I was already seeing people saying that the collab was really faithful to the Cyberpunk IP, it was just really overall well made. And after playing it, I will say the first half was very cool when it comes to the interactions between the characters from Cyberpunk and the characters from Wuthering Waves, but the real juice is in the second half. That's the real part that, in my opinion, is more made for Cyberpunk fans, and it's overall a good build up and a good payoff. But yeah, even the character designs are pretty well made. You can tell that a lot of care went into making these characters. Even small details show that, for example, Lucy's agile animation, you can immediately tell that they understand what kind of character they're working in. They didn't just throw Cyberpunk characters into Wuthering Waves and call it a day, they actually put effort into it. They also gave Rebecca away for free, and she's not just some throwaway character, she's actually a really good unit, and depending on what happens in the future, she might end up becoming even more valuable. So when I look at the direction this game is going, honestly, it just looks good. The only thing that really worries people right now is power creep, but even then, that's more of a future concern. It's a what could happen issue, not a what is happening issue. Because if you look at the game right now, the character balance is actually pretty solid overall. Sure, some characters age like milk, that's normal, but but you can also find examples that go against power creep argument. For example, Encore. In some Tower of Adversity scenarios, Encore can actually outperform Camellia because of quick swap teams. And honestly, seeing a standard banner character outperform limited characters in certain situations is crazy. That's not something you normally see in gacha games, so even the power creep discussion isn't as clear-cut as some people make it sound. However, after making this whole script for my video, I've seen that the recent TOA has had some complaints about HP inflation. So again, it's another common gacha thing. This is not a Wuthering Waves thing, but I just want to really say that I haven't played it yet, but regardless, if they don't give you buffs to compensate for that HP inflation, I think you should 100% give the feedback to Kuro, call it out, and say that you're not happy about this change. So yeah, a bit of a tangent here, because it's really important to call out before it becomes an even bigger problem than it already is. And now coming back to the video, then you have Lucilla, a character that besides supporting Glacial Shave, she also supports echo damage teams, and she's also not directly power creeping existing support because she kinda fills a different role, has a different playstyle, and there's space for Q1 on your account if you have 2 or more echo DPS characters, which is exactly how these characters should be designed. So once again, the overall direction of the game just looks really good, and that's why I think the statement Wuthering Waves became too good to criticize, while not 100% true, it's also not crazy to say. But I think it reached a point where most of the remaining criticisms falls into one of 3 categories: personal preference, nitpicks, or problems that affect the entire gacha genre. And that's a very different situation from where the game was at launch, because 2 years ago people were asking if Wuthering Waves was going to survive. Today we're debating whether there are enough problems left to criticize in the first place. And honestly, that's probably one of the biggest complaints you can give a live service game. Anyways, those are my thoughts. If you want to see some of the other criticism that I talked about before, you can check out my previous video, and I'll see you in the next one. Also, don't forget to subscribe and join our Discord. And bro, I couldn't have released this video in a worse time, right after the TOA controversy. Anyways.